Welcome back to the Les Petites Saint Crochet blog. I'm Elise, and today we are talking all about Amigurumi 101 Part 2. So, first of all though, if you have not watched Part 1 yet, please pause this video, go back to Part 1 and watch that, because that step is absolutely crucial to your success. And if you are watching this on the blog, there will be a link to that in the blog post. And if you are on YouTube, the link to that will be in the description box below. So go click on that, pause it, come right back. I'll wait for you right here. So today we are talking all about how to choose a pattern and a color palette for your first amigurumi project, okay? So you may be thinking, there are so many different colors, there are so many different patterns, how am I going to choose one? And I agree, this can be a bit of a daunting task, especially if you are a beginner. But I have 3 tips for you and we're gonna go over them. The first thing you need to look at is the shape of your amigurumi pattern. So I want you to look at the pattern and I want you to see, are there a lot of increases and decreases? Is this thing super complicated in its shape? Is it like smaller here and then it gets bigger and then smaller and bigger and smaller and bigger and smaller throughout the whole pattern? That's probably a clue that this might not be a beginner-friendly pattern. You want to look for simpler shapes. A little bit simple. It can have a little bit of a neck. It can go from the head and a little bit of a neck and a body. That's okay. You don't want something that is, the head has a lot of shaping to it and the body is complicated looking. Just stay away from things like that. Number 2 are color changes. I want you to look, if something has a bunch of different colors for the face and the body and all of these things, I want you to stay away from that. Look for patterns that have, maybe there's 1 or maybe 2 colors. Try to stay with that, and even if you could adapt it to say, I don't need to make that a different color, that could stay 1 color. I think you will find that to be a little bit easier while you dip your toe into amigurumi making. And number 3 is sewing. If you see that this pattern has a bunch of different parts, it's got a snout, it has ears, it has ridges down the back like a dinosaur, it has arms, and you got to add the legs and a tail. You might find that that is very frustrating in the beginning. So maybe look for patterns that have fewer parts that you are going to need to sew on. So we're going to actually compare these 2 different little animals. We have Bitty Bunny here, and then I have my little Francesco fox here. And we're going to use those 3 characteristics, and I'm going to show you how this one is the more beginner-friendly pattern, and this one is a little more advanced. So let's start again with the shape. I want you to notice how little Benedict Bunny is fairly simple in his shape. He does have a little bit of a neck, but there's not any complicated shaping in his head. He just has simple little arms and little legs. He's just pretty simple. You can notice that when you see him in the video here. Now, little Francesco, he is adorable and I love him, but I do not recommend him for a beginner. I want you to see, he has shaping, complicated shaping in his face. His arms are complicated. Those are shaping right there. That is not clothing right there that is on him. That is actually his arm. You can also see that his little feet he has socks on his little feet. That is actually his foot. Those don't come off. That all creates a more difficult pattern. Now we're also going to look at the colors. Benedict Bunny is basically 1 color for his whole body. Yes, he does have ears, but those are attached later and those are in a different color. And his little scarf is a different color, but that is added later. So his whole body is 1 color, which makes it much simpler for a beginner. Now Francesco has multiple colors. If you notice his face, that is more difficult to do, and I don't really recommend that for beginners. His snout has multiple colors. His shirt is a different color, his shoes and his little socks are different colors. this is not a good idea for a beginner. You get your feet wet for a little while, then he's a wonderful pattern. I absolutely love him. And then number 3 is sewing on of parts. For little Benedict Bunny here, the only parts you have to sew on are the arms and the ears. That's it. That's pretty simple when it comes to amigurumi. For Francesco, not only do you do his ears, you also have his snout. You're going to sew on his arms. You actually sew on his legs, and then he has a tail that you sew on, and then his overalls are made in addition to all of that. So if you kind of see what I'm talking about here, simple, more advanced, simple, more advanced. So hopefully that helps you in determining if a pattern is a little more simple or a little more difficult. You can find the pattern for Benedict Bunny on my blog. He is a free pattern, and there's also a little girl called Beatrice Bunny, and they're on my blog for free. I will leave a link to that in the description box below if you're on YouTube, and I will leave a link in the blog post right to that free pattern. Our next step is to choose your color palette. Now, there is nothing more frustrating than spending all of that time to find the perfect pattern, choosing your colors, and then figuring out halfway through a project that you despise the colors you chose and you feel totally uninspired now. I have been there, done that, got the t-shirt. So I now spend a good deal of time choosing my colors for a particular project, and I have 3 steps that I really think will help you to choose the right colors that you are going to love. When choosing colors, really look at your wardrobe and your home decor choices to see what are you naturally drawn to. Do you love neutrals and muted tones? Do you love pastels? Do you love deep, rich colors? Or are you attracted to those brilliant jewel tones? Really look at what you're naturally drawn to and see if you can create a color palette that you love for your first amigurumi. Step number 2 is to decide if you are a cool tone person that loves blues and greens and grays, or do you lean more towards warm tones like peachy colors and mustard yellows and reds? Which one of those just makes your heart go pitter patter? Now, I know that I am a warm tone gal all the way, but I really didn't realize that about myself for quite some time. Now I kind of stick to that. That doesn't mean I don't use cool toned colors, but I try to stick to one of those color palettes within one project. So I'm not going to do cool and warm tones in one amigurumi. I try to stick with one or the other. The 3rd step is to find color inspiration. Now, I have found that Pinterest is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to color. Especially wedding planners and home decor people are experts at color pairing, which should come as no surprise to us. And I frequently use this as a way to help me decide colors for a project. So what I will do is, especially if I know I'm going to make, for example, a pig, I choose the main color. So let's use this one as an example. I choose this beautiful blushy pink as my base color. And then I will choose the mustard yellow and the navy and this burnt orange as accent colors, because I just love the way that is all paired together. While this is definitely for wedding and for floral arrangements for weddings, it doesn't matter. It works perfectly well for yarn. And then I will see if I have those colors in my stash and put them together to see how they all look together. And I have just found this to be such a wonderful resource, and I will link to that in my blog post so that you can check this out as well. And I hope that you will begin making your own color palette boards on Pinterest as well. You now have some homework to do. You need to choose your beginner amigurumi pattern, and you need to choose your color palette. And I am going to leave some links to help you to do that. Number 1, I will leave a link at the bottom of my blog post for the Bitty Bunnies pattern if you choose to use this as your beginner pattern. I'm also going to leave a link to my Amigurumi pattern directory, which has a list of every single amigurumi designer that I have used, and I love their patterns, so you can look through that. I also have a link to the Animal Friends of Peek-a-Pow book, and I absolutely love that, and there are some great beginner patterns in that one as well. And lastly, I will leave a link to my yarn recommendations. So that would be very helpful for you, especially if you have no idea what yarn you would actually use. And so I really hope that this helped you. I would love to hear if you have chosen a pattern and what you're working on. And please always know that I'm here to help and assist you in any way that I can.